Welcome to DIYEasyCrafts.com. Today we're going to take a look at how to make a floating boat ramp, in this case for a Carolina skiff. Now this is a J16 Carolina skiff, and I wanted to be able to get it up onto my floating dock. I had existing floating docks that were built with 2x10s. So I had to match whatever I built up to that. And I figured I would use boat trailer bunk rollers as well as a winch in order to do the job. So this is the frame, and notice that I've tapered it down. So I've got a 2x10 on one side that'll mount to my original dock, and then it tapers down to 2x6 on the other side, and that's as low as I could get it so that the boat doesn't have to, be winched up as far. What I did was I just screwed two of them together, and this dock ends up being 6 foot by 8 foot. So these are 8-foot pieces of 2x10, and I'm just using a circular saw. I drew a line that would, basically go from a 2x10 to a 2x6. I did put a new blade in the circular saw, and it goes through it pretty quickly. I did set that saw blade a little bit deep so that it would actually leave a mark in the next board. I'll show you. Just going to remove the couple of screws. See how it leaves the next mark for me to follow. So that kind of makes certain that all of them are going to be the same. And I just repeated that for a total of 6 2x10s. Those are going to be the stringers. Now I'm going to use corner brackets, both inside and outside, for each of the corners. This is very important because as a ramp, this dock is going to have a lot more stress and a lot more weight on it than just people walking. I used a speed bore to drill all the holes, and 1/2-inch galvanized hardware. And a lot of times I've built, quite a few of these docks over the years. If it wasn't for a boat ramp, you could just use a 4x4 in the corner. But like I said, with the stress and the weight that's going to be on this, I really wanted to make sure that it was going to be strong enough. Now I got this little air tool down at Harbor Freight. It was $19.95. A very good. If you got a compressor, I would highly recommend it. It's also great for working around the water. God, you don't want to fall in the water with an electric tool in your hand. In worst case, if I drop it in the water, it was $19.95. I could throw it away and buy a new one. So the frame is basically done. Notice that each of the stringers on the inside are doubled up, and that's so that I can mount the black floats too. But I still want to add brackets to those inside stringers. So what I did was I just added inside corner brackets. And I don't know if it was because the wood that I was working with was a little bit saturated or wet, but this thing ended up getting very heavy very fast. This is not a huge dock. This is only 6x8, but it got heavy. So what I did was I laid out all of the floats. Now, I had cut 3 of these out of an existing old finger dock that I had. A friend of mine found 2 of them floating around on the marsh, so I only had to buy 1. I was also able to salvage a lot of the hardware, the inside brackets, etc. I used 3/8 bolts, galvanized lags, to secure each of these. And I actually pre-drilled all the holes and mounted all of these floats, and then I removed them, or removed the majority of them, in order to move this dock into the backyard closer to the water. And I did that just so that reassembling them, would just be a little bit quicker and a little bit easier. Because most of the dock I just built by myself, but in order to move it, I had to call in some friends. So this has got 2 foot by 1 foot by 4 foot floats on one side, 3 of them. And on the other side, it's got 2 4s and a 3 foot long one in the middle. This is just what I ended up having. It's got a total of, each of the 4s has over 400 pounds of lift. The 3s have about 300 pounds of lift. This thing has at least 2,300 pounds of lift. So we rolled it into the backyard on PVC, and with the help of my son, my friend Mike and his son, we were able to slide this thing and guide it into the water so that it landed upright. And that was my biggest fear, is that it would land upside down. That would be a real pain in the neck to try to flip it in the water. So now I was able to mount it or attach it to my existing floating dock, and then start adding the decking. This would have just added way too much weight for us to move it and play around with it. The deck is made out of all 2x6s. Screwed everything down. Now the upright for the boat winch I made also made out of 2x6s, 3 of them, and I sandwiched them together. They're going to sandwich right over the middle stringer of the existing floating dock. That'll get bolted in place, and it'll also have support arms going down the back that will also sandwich that same stringer. So this thing will be rock solid. I bought a decent winch. The first one I bought at Harbor Freight, it broke the very first time I used it. I went on Amazon and I bought a decent quality one. I think this was almost, 40, 50 bucks. Well worth it. And these are the bunk rollers. I also found these on Amazon. They were about $165 for the set. It's a 5-foot long pair of rolled bunk rollers. I mounted them slightly cantered over the end. The wheels have to be low enough so that they get under the front gunnel and onto the area of the bow that's angled downward, so that when you pull the boat up, as soon as you apply pressure and you're just going to clip that strap onto the bow eye, it starts to roll up onto those rollers. So this is the finished product. So I've got that trailer winch as well as the bunk rollers, and I was actually pleasantly surprised at how easily this thing rolled up. The deck actually tilted down where it's hinged. That's the attachment point between the new floating dock and the old one. And the majority of the weight of this whole boat is going to be on that new floating dock. Everything that hangs over onto the old dock is really just in the air. To get the boat back in the water, just release the winch, and then I just guide it. I really just slow it down. Anyway, that's basically it. Very simple, fairly easy to make floating dock. And you could certainly take this concept and adapt it to a variety of other small boats. I don't know if you'd want to go much bigger, than a 16. You might want to you'd probably get away with an 18. But that's what works for my J16. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, I ask that you please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Absolutely would love it if you left some comments in the comment section. I'd like to give you an invite to check us out on the web at DIYeasycrafts.com. I've got a whole bunch of Carolina Skiff modification videos that I've done in there. Thank you very much for watching.